because you're black, you're not as good. It's something that's been out there in society. You know, the Chinese society that's been around, they've got a history for how many years, how many thousands of years where they can document it. You know, they spend so long staying out of the sun, whitening up and everything, you know, this white and this purity. And I mean, I was saying to someone the other day, when we daven on Rosh Hashanah, you know, sometimes we say to Hashem, though my sins be as scarlet, you know, they shall be as white as snow. And this sense of purity, I don't know where it comes from. And I suspect your answer is as good as mine.
Okay.
But yes, so I can't really answer that much. But all I can say to you is that leading on from that, I know you might be getting a lot of questions, but leading on from that, George Floyd, whatever he was also a victim of his circumstances, a victim of a racist kind of society. Now that's really hard to explain to a lot of people, that society is racist, it's biased, it favors those who, you know, those who are white in places like America, and for a very long time in places like England. We are a lot further on, and I think racism in Britain became very under the, you know, it's very subdued, but it is still there. A society that operates on those kind of values. And officers who have racist ideas and they have the power to be able to carry out their ideas, they have the opportunity. And the system in America for many years, and maybe here to a lesser extent, has protected police officers who kill black people. They've had to go through so many hoops to prove that, you know, this killing wasn't because of provocation, or it wasn't brought about by the black person. They have to prove that. And for the first time, somebody was standing there with a camera. But all I can say to you is, and I know there are lots of Jews out there who are thinking, and I'm not saying the ones that are here or the ones that are not here, but there are a lot of Jews who feel, well, what's this march about? Why do they have to march? Why are you going out there in the numbers? I've joined a march. I've joined a march because I didn't know what to do with myself. I cried one night. I found myself crying because somebody was killed because they were black, you know, and it's not just one person. It's going on. It's been going on for such a long time. And we've got to say to ourselves, what kind of society do we live in? And as Jews now, especially, what is our contribution to refining this society? And we are held to a higher standard. And that's something maybe we can talk about later, is that we are held to a higher standard and we have to get involved. And I know that a lot of the black groups are anti-Semitic, and they've joined up with some, you know, anti-Jewish thoughts. They are very painful for black Jews. There are many of us, it's not just me. There are many black Jews out there. They're on forums now, and there's a lot of Zoom things going on. And you know, we're in a lot of pain because we're part of the black community, and we feel that pain, and we know that, you know, that the Jewish community will never understand, the majority of the Jewish community who are white will never understand that a black mother has to say to her child, just be careful when you're having fun and you just laugh too loud, because you will be the one that they will pick on. Just don't go there. Just remember when you're in the car with, you know, their teenagers, you know, these black mothers are having these conversations all the time with their black sons, and it's not really normal. And you know, you're saying to your child, you are black, so you have to behave 10 times better than a white child. These are the conversations that are going all the time. And black people know that they're discriminated against, but to this extent where someone can be killed, you know, to live under this pressure. Now, it has been said that Rayshard Brooks, who died a couple of days ago, no one knows why he was running away. Maybe he wanted to get back to his daughter's birthday, but maybe he was just, maybe that this was all in his head.
Questions?
Basically, the Black community is traumatized, and the Black Jewish community is also extremely traumatized.
Well, you're covering, Loretta, you're covering a load of stuff and questions.
Yeah, I know.
You know, and as they're coming in, you're beating them to it. But I just want to mention one thing.
Oh, sorry, I'll let you.
The Black Lives Matter, the buzzword, the slogan. What are your comments on that? And especially, I was watching. I was watching a piece on YouTube by this lady, what's her name, Cadence, somebody who was going on and on about sort of don't make George Floyd into a saint.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, you're listening to all different messages that are coming through. Some people were very against the movement Black Lives, or the people Black Lives Matter. Other people in every shape and color. I'd like, you know, could I hear, you know, what your take is on it, because you're coming from within the Black community as well as being Jewish.
So you see, the thing about it is George Floyd would have been the victim from a very young child of failures in the system along the way. You know, I don't know I don't know how many of you actually heard the, how many actually heard the, what was it, the memorial that they had. And the brother spoke about how poor they were. They were so poor, they didn't have anywhere to dry their clothes. They didn't even have anywhere to wash their clothes. They were washing their clothes in, they said no matter what, they wanted to be clean. And they were washing their clothes in a small sink, and they were drying it on top of kettles and on top of things, you know, not a heater. So this is a very poor family. So you're already talking about living in the worst areas, not gaining access to education. You know, when I was in education, one of the things that school teachers would tell us, which were always mainly women, they feel intimidated by big Black men, you know, in the classroom. By the time they're going through puberty and they're 14, 15, 16 years old, they're already intimidating, and they're already discovering their sexuality, and this is playing out in the classroom, and they're not getting taught. They're not getting an education. And then they go outside and they can't get a job. And, you know, before you know it, they're in a whole environment. A lot of them, their parents aren't, their fathers aren't there. And already it's a spiral down. They're surrounded by gangs who are pulling them in. And so those communities are not properly policed either. They're only policed as far as, sorry?
Nothing.
Okay. Yes, so already he wasn't a saint, and he'd been stealing, and then he had an aggravated one apparently, but at the end of the day, he was a victim of racism. And also, you know, I can't condone anything wrong that he did, but at the time when he was killed, someone kneeled on his neck with their knee, and they held him there for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, thinking it to be quite funny, quite enjoyable, until he was dead, until his life was taken from him. And 3 other people stood by and watched and did nothing. And you know what? That's the message. Do we stand by as Jews now and watch a section of the population of society treated in this way? And what the movement is about this, the Black Lives Matter has to be separated from, and this is what you have to do. You have to separate it, like I have to separate it from the actual, you know, when you're out there, you're saying Black Lives Matter isn't quite the right phrase. But the fact that we have to tell people that Black Lives Matter is a response to the fact that there's somebody out there or people out there who really think that it's okay to kill someone like this because they're of no value. It's not just once. This is what you have seen on modern day gadgets that can capture clear caption. We've not seen half of them. This guy was responsible for the deaths of this same murderer had murdered other Black men while capturing them. And, you know, he's getting away with it all the time. The only thing that protected him, that exposed him this time, was someone's camera. So, you know, at the end of the day, you have to separate, which I have to do, separate the Black Lives Matter from the actual movement that people have come out. And when I went out there, there was not actually, I couldn't say the crowd was black or the crowd was white. All I can tell you, the crowd was full of people, and it was beautiful to see. And there was no violence, and people were really frustrated. And everyone wants to feel, what can I do now? And, you know, I wouldn't be speaking here today if I didn't feel this. Because after crying, I thought, well, how are you going to just return? It's all right for us. We sit at our Shabbos table and we have Shabbat Shalom. We have a peaceful Shabbat. This, again, is, you know, Shabbat is one of the most beautiful gifts that Hashem gave us. And if we want to understand that this peace that we have, it's actually unique. But there is no peace for these Black families. Their children, I mean, how this guy went out to buy food for his kids, I'll never know. You know, as a Black guy, I don't know how I would go out on the street. They get stopped, and you know, the footballers are complaining about it. The footballers are getting stopped because they're Black and they're driving a fancy car. And all I'm saying is, at the end of the day, I understand that Black Lives Matter and some of the other groups are anti-racist, anti-Semitic, and I don't know where it comes from. They're borrowing the agendas of others who are not supporting their agenda, but for some reason, they're in that space. But despite that, Black lives do matter. And we've got to somehow find a way within our lives to act. And this is what should happen after George Floyd, is that this is time for change. It's time for us to literally change what we're doing. And every single one of us here tonight have a role to play. And we have to find out what that role is. And we'll talk about that towards the end.
I've got a question. I remember when I first met you, and you were rediscovering your roots. And I said to you, why do you want to get back into this Jewish thing? Have you not got enough trouble being Black? And your answer to me at the time was, after being Black, I could be anything. You know, a lot of people on here tonight, I know you're not going to be very comfortable with this. Would like to hear a little bit about your story, your path, your journey. Could you give us a few little anecdotal stories along the way? I don't want to turn this into a gawk of Loretta's life. But
it can't be, Rabbi Jaffe, unfortunately. You know, this isn't the time for personal stories, because this is the time for the Black people now to start looking out for everybody, and for every Jew to start looking out for the Black person, for the underdog who's suffering like this. And, you know, I understand what you're saying, you know, that, you know, there's been a lot of, in a community like this, there are situations, and it's not just my experience, it's the experience of all Black Jews. You know, you turn up to the synagogue and you're trying to get in. It's a synagogue you haven't been to for a while. You're trying to get in. And the security questions is, you know, tell me, how are you Jewish? How are you Jewish? You know, like I said before, and, you know, and they're asking you, it's not their business there and then at the door, but it's an issue. So this is stopping a lot of Black Jews from enjoying the experience of going to shul, because the questioning on the gate is beginning to feel like I'm getting more questions than if I was a funny white person turning up here, you know, or a white person that hasn't been seen before, that turned up here. Would they get asked the same question? You know, today we had a meeting with some other Black Jews, and I said, you know, I turned up somewhere and I was asked to repeat the Shema at the door. I was asked to repeat the Shema, and somebody else said, I was asked to repeat it. I mean, he repeated it, obviously I didn't, but he repeated it. I said I would repeat the second section if this guy repeated the first. If he did the first section, then I would do the second one. And we ended up laughing, and I got in. But it's the experience of everyone. So I think right now it's about the experience of Black Jews. They're going in and they're feeling, you know, some of the men are not getting aliyot. You know, some of the Black Jews are not getting aliyot. This is an issue. You know, the whole, sorry. And that's it really. You know, they're going into into the Jewish shops, and they're getting stared at, you know, they're getting stared at. You know, I've mentioned it before, the kosher shop, you know, have asked me to leave the shop. MH Butchers asked me to leave the shop, you know, to get out. That's not, and that you know, when the British and the US judicial system has been based on something like the Talmud, we are held to a higher standard. We are held to a higher standard. And so we've got to live a higher standard. And, you know, you've got to, I mean, for me, the meat is treif, you know, because I can't understand where that Torah comes from. And I can't eat that meat. You know, as it happens, somebody turned up the following day with some meat, which stayed in my freezer for a year. And then I gave it away. But this is the experience of Black Jews. If you want to know more about my bad experiences, you know, this is it. But people are having different experiences. And I'm not speaking just for myself. It's just the Black Jews around the world are having this experience. And people asking them questions like, how are you Jewish? You know, how do you know you're Jewish? Is it your grandparents that's Jewish? Is it your grandmother? Or is it, oh, I've got a Jewish background. Is it your grandmother or your grandfather? You know, who gets asked these questions? Rabbi Jaffe?
I've got to unmute myself because I'm under instruction here to keep quiet. Right. You've questioned here, you spent a lot of time in Israel. I think Edwina's there at the moment, isn't she?
Oh, yes, she's big Aliyah.
What's your experiences in Israel, especially when there's been a huge influx of Black people into Israel over recent years? Have you had any good or bad experiences there? Are they different than here? Are they?
Yes, okay. So I hear you. The thing about Israel is that you're talking about a country that has to manage mass immigration of people from different places, mainly Europe and the Americas. They're coming with their same attitudes that they've got elsewhere and that they've picked up around the world. And the purification of the Jewish people has somehow got to be about this at some stage. However, when we used to go, when the children were very young, we used to get a lot, we used to get a hard time at the airport, you know, where you go. It's the questions now seems to be very fair to everyone, to be quite honest with you. Everybody seems to be getting the same questions. But somehow something has changed in Israeli society. It is a lot more pleasant. It is a lot more homely to be there. You're not a suspicion, you know, it is better, but you still have European people with, you know, take for instance, Edwina is saying she's kind of still living, sometimes she's living in a European bubble, you know, when you're in an Anglo area. You know, nothing's changed if there are attitudes. I mean, I know I've been talking about attitudes as if it's negative. The Jewish community is a positive experience for me. It's just that we're talking about changes since this incident and what we can all do. So first of all, we've got to point to the areas that aren't so perfect within the community that we can improve on, and that will make a big difference to the lives of all Jews, because Jews aren't just white. Jews were never homogeneous. Avram Avinu went around making disciples. So from the very inception, apart from the initial family, those around were never, and I suspect that most of us here, well, I'll say most of you here, have come from converts of different sort at one time down the line. Most of you here, I mean, Sephardi have a different way of thinking about it. They think they're the more authentic line, but you know, the Ashkenazi have a control over the way people are treated. I'm talking about being black in Israel, and I was shocked in Israel to learn that a friend of ours who had she had a name like Yaakov, and she wanted to be more Israeli. She said, I'm going to change it to Yakovsky, something like this. She wanted to be more, she was in the Hasidic Haredi community. She was going to change it to Yakovsky. And the rabbi says, she wanted to make it more Israeli, more Sephardi, and the rabbis advised her, it wasn't Yakovsky, and the rabbis advised her, if you want to get your children into school, that's the last thing you do. And you know, that's not even funny, because Sephardi in schools at the moment, religious Sephardi cannot get their children into the appropriate Ashkenazi schools in Israel, because there is that segregation. What is that about? You know, the Yemenites have had their share of problems, the Sephardim, the rest of the Sephardim, and the Ethiopians. And that's because there is something within this society that it's the Ashkenazi side that feels a kind of superiority over the rest. And I can't remember the rest of your question, Rabbi Jarvis.
How much of this discrimination, want of a better word, right? You think it's just down to people just being uncomfortable with anything that was different to them, and how much of it is proper negativity?
Oh, I'm not sure it's from I don't think it's from negativity. I think the Jewish people have had a long battle of racism and anti-Semitism, you know, so you can't say that. I mean, so it's justifiable, and everybody is comfortable with people that are like themselves, you know, they're comfortable in their own groups. It is a natural thing. So we're asking people to go beyond that, really, out of your comfort zone. It's nice and comfortable to be, you know, where and I don't think it's so much that they are, well, they're wanting to be racist. I don't think they want to be racist. And I just think a lot of things around them to fit in, because they want to fit in with their little clique. They have to be like this. And, you know, a friend of mine, just as this article went out, came to me and she said to me, I understand how you feel. I said, well, I don't feel like that because I didn't say that to the paper. And she said, well, you know, my son has been going on Shidduchim, and they present girls to him, and if he likes a girl and expresses anything, that's, you know, got a Sephardi mother or a Sephardi father. And the Shadchanim are doing an enormous amount of damage. You know, they're not presenting people for who they really are. They really are matching on all sorts of things, and they're perpetuating this into young Jewish family lives. And you're getting, so this thing is out there. It's out there in a big bad way, and it's controlled by various people. And, you know, I think that prejudice is out there. People are staying away from this one, what is the reason?
What have you seen in the past 10, 20 years of, you know, positive action that's been made to try and balance, you know, like from your experiences in the community, has it changed from since when you first came?
It's a bit misleading that, because I've been in Manchester, and I did want to tell you before, I just had a wonderful positive experience. So it started off positive, and it's just stayed positive. So I've got a very strong positive thing, but there are negativities in there, things that we need to work on. And, you know, also, it shouldn't depend on your personality. It shouldn't depend on whether you're a Black person who can face a lot of negativity to get through it. So maybe I'm a little bit more durable, but there are a lot of Jews who find it hard, people staring at them, you know, asking them intrusive questions that they wouldn't ask somebody that's a stranger, excluding, you know, that's another thing, you see, is, you know, someone comes to the shul and you're doing your invites. You'll invite everybody else that's new in the community, but somebody's Black, will you turn around and invite them as well? You know, these probably things we can do, but these are things that some of the Black Jews have experienced. They might have gone somewhere with other white Jews and seen that they're getting more accepted, more taken in. And we do understand that, you know, they might feel less threatened, but at the end of the day, it's impacted on the life of another Black Jew. So in terms of what positive things, if you're asking me what's positive in the Jewish community, it's a fantastic community. It's got a lot of things going for it, but we've got to do it with, but it's got some negative things. It's very insular, which means that a lot of people are not interacting. You know, they're not interacting with other Black people. So you've got a schooling system, and I think I mentioned the other day, you know, our chief Rabbi Sachs, who was before the current one, probably went to a school that was mixed, wasn't a Jewish school. Our children nowadays do not benefit from any interaction, and I subscribe to part of that. They don't benefit from any interaction with other cultures and communities, and we're poorer off for it. You know, where you've got communities speaking Yiddish all the time, and they don't venture out, and, you know, they use language in the homes, like, you know, use language that's not, it's not positive to describe others. So that creates all the negativity. But at the end of the day, I find that the community is quite positive.
What difference, from your experience, is there between the discrimination against Black people or the discrimination against anybody that doesn't quite fit in? That's what I was asking.
You know, it's a bit of a thing. Anthony and I sometimes when we go on holiday, he takes out his cap, you know, where he puts a hat on. He covers his capel, and you know he can try and pretend. Not everybody's queued up about what a Jew looks like. So if he puts a cap on, our experience can be quite positive, you know. Sometimes with the capel on, he can get some looks. And I think that's the thing with discrimination with Black people, is that you can't, it's a reaction to your color. You know, it's a reaction to your color. It's, you know, you say, you know, somebody who wears a kippah sruga, who goes into a strimal wearing community, will also not be treated amazingly, you know. But, you know, you can change that capel at some stage, you know, and you can, it's not a reaction to who you are.
Right. I'm unmuted.
Yeah.
I'm listening to you. Cause actually, what suggestions or things that you've seen already put in place, or things that you think could be put in place that would change these attitudes, these nervousness? Like, what, you know, over the years, you must have sort of, well, if we did this, this would change everything, or a lot of it.
I think there's lots of things. I think I've broken it down into like looking at the community, the schools, the shadchanim, and looking at the self. You know, we need training for some of the community leaders, especially some rabbis. I've not experienced rabbis that I'm talking about, but a lot of the Black Jews have talked about you know, the way they're treated. Some of them, like I said, they don't get aliyot and stuff like that. And that would apply to everyone, really. It's very hard to think that, you know, if you go into a shop to do your shopping, that can be an unpleasant experiences. And I think people in shops need to be very sensitive that when someone comes in, not to make them feel like they don't want them there. You know, Black people are very familiar. You go into a shop. It started happening when I was 18. I started to go to Kendall's and places like that. And very often, before you look around, you'll see someone's coming behind you. Can I help you? You know, you get a lot of help when you're a Black person in some of these shops. And Black youths are very used to this. And so it's not something you want to experience in a Jewish shop, because it's, you know, you want to feel, they're not running behind you asking you anything, but you should be made, and people are talking about feeling stared at, not being comfortable in there. And I think there needs to be training for people. The synagogues, they put on shiurim, but maybe they should do cultural training. You know, they should do how to greet and welcome people, questions not to ask, and things not to say, words that might sound offensive because it sounds a bit Yiddish, but a Black person knows what it means. You know, you can't change a Schwarzer, or you can't change a whatever you want to call it. It feels derogatory, you know, calling some and other words that are used. So there's just a training around those normal community things in schools. The books that we use, they're not inclusive. There's nothing in there that makes Jewish children see that Black people can be Jews as well. So when they meet a real one, it's a complete new take. So, you know, the idea that I spoke again today. I was saying, someone said, one of the ladies, another Black lady from the Black Jews of color, she said she was listening to a reading in a classroom, and they were explaining that when Sarah went to this place, all the other people around were dark, and Sarah, she was fair and she was beautiful, and all the other people were like monkeys, you know, around. And this is what they're teaching in the schools. And a lot of schools are teaching, they don't realize the power of this language. And they're already, and we need to educate children. And this will make a big change, to educate children. Even, they're not gonna have enough Black people for them to experience at first hand, but we're gonna have to start trying to find a way of introducing it in the books, in the curriculum. And you know, just to make this point, no, that's slightly different. This is that I had something there that I didn't get around to mentioning. Actually, we have a system in this country where Sephardim are busy changing their names so that they can get into schools. They're changing their Sephardi names. I've made that point before, but that is, I spoke to a young girl who told me her story. She said she went to school and her mother said, don't use your Sephardi name. She said, don't use your first name, because that was also Sephardi sounding. She said, use your, actually this happened in Israel. She said to her, I'm gonna give you a new name. So she gave her a new name, and this was her first day at school. But when she went to school, she couldn't remember the name. And she looked beside her and she couldn't remember it. She looked beside her and she saw that the girl was called Sarah, whatever. And she told the teacher she was called Sarah, but she was terrified that she would use the wrong name and get kicked out of the school. And, you know, also amongst the Black Jews, we have a guy, I don't know if many of you know, just nod if you know Nissim. He's a rapper, I think, one of the Black rapper. Yeah. Thank you, Ginny, again. I can see your face on the right and the hand going up. Yes. Yes, and he's in a very Haredi environment. His children have been raised in this area. I don't know, he doesn't live in Mir Sharim, but the one of them today actually did. But when he came to get his kids into school, the parents didn't want him. The teachers in the school didn't want him and his children in the school. They had to make a big appeal to the chief rabbi and all that palaver because he's Black. This is not the society that we want to be a part of. And I know that none of you here want to be a part of that. I can see Wendy, I can see, hi, I can see a few there that I'm sure wouldn't be happy with that kind of thing. I can't see many, by the way. I can only see, and Gail. Right, okay, yeah.
Loretta, there's a lot we can wish to change, okay? But we've got nearly 100 people on, actually, at one point.
Yeah, but yeah, wait a minute. Let me just quickly finish. I know you're in a time thing. I was just saying, I mentioned the Shadchanim before, and they need training. Anyone who is going to be up as a Shadchan, putting people together, should not be matching. You know, someone said, I mean, it goes as bad as this, that someone said that they had, I think, one leg, and they went to the Shadchan, and the Shadchan actually came to the parents and said, I've got somebody with one finger, you know, and, you know, if you're divorced, I know, because this is how they're matching them. If you're divorced, and you're from a divorced family, if you're got any Sephardim in the last few generations, so there needs to be training. So I think education and training is got to be at the end of this. And for the South now, we've all got to read. We've got to educate ourselves. This is an age where nobody should say they don't know. We can all Google it. We can all get online. You've got to educate yourselves, and you've got to read up about the prison system, read up about the economic structure, how it works, how underprivileges are. You know, it's really hard when you come from our background a lot of the time to understand what's going on further down. What the individual can do when they see someone, try and learn their names, try and remember the name. Because, you know, sometimes I thought that people knew who I was, but they're going up to other Black people who were around here and saying, "Oh, hi, Loretta," or "I'm a good friend of Loretta," and that's, you know, I'm a good friend of Loretta, and there she is, and she's not. How can that be? You know, you've got to learn the names, try and learn it. And one of the other things, and one of the Black Jews was explaining, was that there are 2 Black people in their workplace, 2 Black people, and nobody can ever remember their names. So that's a nice thing if people can remember the names. And this is something everyone can do. Try to be warm and invite people when you're inviting others to be aware if there are Black people around or somebody different. And that applies to other people that are new as well. But certainly if you see a Black person, not to be afraid to invite them, because Shabbat for them, if they turn up in your shul, is just the same as it is for anybody else. You know, they're looking for that connection. They're looking to be at, I don't know what they're looking for most of the time, except that if you invite others and you don't invite them, they feel it. Yes, Rabbi Jaffe, I think...
I should imagine that people, Black people, probably feel it more because they know before they start they're on a back foot when they walk into a community. So I think we've got to make a special effort to reach out to people, not just Black, but anybody who's slightly different to what we expect the norm to be. We need to make an effort. In what way, Loretta, would you say, you know, we've got a diverse group of people on here tonight? Some people who go to school, some people who don't engage with the community on a regular basis.
Sorry, can you repeat that again? I misheard that.
Some people, we've got a diverse group on here tonight. Some people go to school all the time, right? And some people go to school very irregularly. What advice can you give to us all, right? And what we can do if you come in contact with a Black person in a crowd, or you come in contact with a Black person on the street or in a shop, is there anything you can do, right, to sort of counteract the negativity that you've been telling us about? Without, you know, I don't want to seem like I'm patronizing somebody. If I walk into a shop and I see a Black person, I'm running straight over to him and give him a big hug, right? You know, like what would you, from your experience, suggest as a good balance?
I don't know. I don't think Black people expect anything special. You know, they don't expect any special treatment. They just don't expect to have anything that you wouldn't, like for you to treat them in any other way than you would treat another person. Like you wouldn't ignore them. You wouldn't, you know, it's just common courtesy. And most of us who work, I mean, since we've been in Manchester, it's no longer a provincial little town, especially. It's become a big international city. You know, more is expected, you know, like people in the workplace. A lot of us here work in the workplace with other people. It's not an issue, you know, for most people. And it's for those people who are not interacting that it has to be part of there need to be some part of interaction with people who are different, and to realize that the Jewish people are not all white. You know, don't be shocked because a Jewish person looks a bit darker and is darker than the darkest one you've ever seen before. You know, you might have seen a Yemenite, you might have seen a, you know, I don't know, Moroccan, you might have seen whatever. But to remember, and now you've seen a darker one, and you're thinking this couldn't be a Jewish person. You can't. You've got to know that Jews are of different colors. And you know, people here are not ignorant. A lot of everyone here, there's nothing here that I've got to say to you that you couldn't say to me. And I would say that one of the biggest things that we can do here tonight is to really question ourselves, really do some introspective searching. I think that's the main thing after the George Floyd and the other incident and the other murder, is to see, you know, how are we perpetuating racism in our homes, in the communities, with the friends. Because sometimes to fit in with your friends, you go along with it. I think the time's come to stand up to that and to not go along with it and to call it out. And I think that's the thing. And we've got to not be afraid of employing Black people. We're not got to be afraid of being employed by them, you know, and go in and to be able to mix and to, you know, and it's just, I just think it's part of being international. But at the end of the day, I am a Jew, and I do understand the need to protect ourselves, because I do understand that that risk that we always feel that we're open to. You know, there's this hatred that's always been there. So we're not so open to everyone. That's part of our makeup. So that's why this has got to be a special message to really get to look within. We've got to educate our children. We've got to train them to understand that people are all equal. And there's, you know, they shouldn't be looking at a Black person with negative language and negative connotation. And we shouldn't be aiding that as parents. And as children, we should be calling out our parents. You know, we should be saying these attitudes are no longer acceptable. They were never acceptable, but now they're not acceptable at all. And I don't have a lot of bad things to say about the community. I'm saying to you, I just know that there are prejudices within. I understand the origin of it, but we have to do better, and we have to be more open to Black people. And Black people, I have 2 girls, and I had no idea they were affected by people staring at them the whole time when they were young, because it didn't affect me. And, but it affected them. And some Black people are like everybody else. Some of them are very sensitive, and some of them can deal with it and some can't. And you just do need to speak. You need to have a warm face. You need to say Shabbat Shalom, just like you do to anybody else. And, you know, because what people do is not to say anything or to turn away. And, you know, I'm laboring that. If anybody has any question, Rabbi Jaffe.
No, we'll be collating the questions as they go. Can you please tell your girls?
Right, okay.
The only reason anybody ever stared at them is because they're gorgeous, right? And they shouldn't. And the misconception that it's anything to do with their colour.
That's very sweet.
Thank you, Loretta, for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it. Only blessings to you that you should have success in everything you do. It's very interesting. You know, we asked to do this because of what's gone on with George Floyd and the whole Black Lives Matter discussion. Then we had this thing in the paper, which I'm sure it wasn't misquoted. It was taken out of complete context because Paul probably has a recording of what you said.
No, it was misquoted. I'm sorry, it was misquoted.
It was misquoted.
It was misquoted. Okay. It wasn't just taken out of context. It wasn't said in any form at all. Okay. As I said, I've got a great sense of belonging to this community. and it wasn't taken out of context at all.
Right.
I didn't use it at all in that.
I was shocked to see it because I've known you for many years. So I want to give our blessings to you that you only have success, and thank you so much for joining us this evening. One thing that has come out of this is that we're starting a support, what's it, not group, a support place for anybody, right? Not just Black people, anybody who feels marginalized for whatever reason. Could have had a bad experience, or they could look different, or something could have happened, but anybody, because lots of people have been in contact with Loretta over the weekend, and if anybody would like in confidence to speak to anybody, or myself, or Loretta, just get in touch, even anonymously, right, and we'll help you. Quite often in the community, people just need a little bit of a nudge or a kick, right, to do the right thing, because the community is, thank God, a beautiful, wonderful community, especially here in Manchester. And sometimes people can just fall through the cracks. So God bless you all. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us. I'm now going to ask my technical guy here to unmute everybody so you can all shout and scream.
Okay, all right. Also, you know, if people, I was thinking, Rabbi Jaffe, if people felt they wanted to donate towards education within the community, supporting Shirim, and to support training and education, and to support books and resources for primary schools and dolls and stuff like that, that they should be in touch, because we're starting a charity amongst the Black Jews to enrich our Jewish community. So yeah. Even though it's you know, yes, right, okay.
Okay, wonderful. Well, an example, I remember probably about 10, 15 years ago, I was distributing Black dolls to all the schools and nurseries in the community for exactly this type of thing. And it's not difficult, right? But it's work that can be done.
Yeah.
And so God bless you all.
Yes, things that can be done. I know that there's a, yes, I know there's a frustration. There's a frustration, you know, what can we do? What can we do? And then you're trying to find, like, you know, some of the small things that you can do. Okay.
Well, have a safe trip home, everybody. And now can you unmute everybody? And I'm not just gonna switch off that some Zooms do, right? I'll let you go at your own pace. Lovely, all these lovely people. God, it's like fantastic. By the way, everybody, this is the first time I've done this.
Oh, well, you've done well.
A lot of.
Thanks. I thought this was a really. Thanks for coming. Thanks all for coming.
Thank you.
Well
done, Loretta. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Loretta.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you for coming. Thank
Wonderful.
you.
All the way from Israel. It was worth it.
All the way from Israel. Is that where you are?
No, it's Pat.
Oh, it's Pat. It's Pat.
I want to say something.
Didn't recognize you.
I want to say.
What's that?
When I first met you in Broughton, you were inspirational to me when I met you, and I thought, this person is such vitality, and the children were, the way they were in shul, they had such wonderful midos, and I was so impressed, and your color never came into it. I'd never met anyone so lively for many years. And
thank you, Pat. It's love being your friend.
We had good times. We had good times.
We did. I wanted to talk about that tonight, but it wasn't to be. Not a time for personal stories.
Maybe another time. Another time.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Well done, Loretta. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you.
What about the rest of us?
Is she gone? Tomorrow night, if you're interested, Shay's Taub, a genius on relationships, bit of a mystic, enthralling speaker at 9 o'clock. Then you've got Rochel on Thursday, Torah and Tea. What else have we got coming on? Got something on medical ethics.
I thought she spoke well, but it was difficult for her. When's that called? Is Loretta still there?
She's gone.
She gone now? Ah, okay. It's very upsetting to hear her experiences, even now in 2020, that people are just so ignorant.
Right. You know, in Israel, there's so many coloured people around. There's Ethiopians, there's Yemenites, and you don't even think about...
Well, using the word coloured is also discriminatory. So it's all,
you know,
it's all the language that's you know, it's very important to get the right language in the first place. That's also very offensive. I know you didn't mean to be, but it's all part and parcel of educating people and people knowing what the right way is to speak to everyone. We should all be speaking to everyone in this the way we would like to be treated. We should be treating everyone else, no matter what their colour, no matter their background. And I think that is the central point of this evening. There's no complicated way, no sort of complex way of dealing with this. It's just all to do with respect. And it's just sad that in 2020 we have to have these discussions. And we as Jews should know better than anyone else how to respect others and how we should all treat everybody with respect, with humility, and not see people as being different. Everybody's different, whether we're the same skin colour or not. No two people are made the same.
All in the image of God.
Absolutely.
All in the image of God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Indeed, very well said. You're on next week.
With pleasure. You got me very fired up. I'm just very upset to hear that was her experiences in Manchester. I think maybe she's played it down quite a bit, but for her to feel the way she does, to be speaking to us like that, she's obviously, she wants to make a point, and so she should. And we all need to learn. Every one of us needs to learn.
Yeah. No, when she was thrown out of the butcher shop, and that was it. I mean, the other people there with, you know, Michigan came, chased her out, right, and went home and went over and above to try and make up for what the guy had done, and then he came crawling, apologising when he'd realised.
Dov, did he say what his reasons were though? Why he actually did it? Did he have a reason? I know there's no reason. What was his reason?
He didn't think she was Jewish.
Yeah. He thought she
was not Jewish. That's the point.
Business. He's turning business away.
Absolutely. Customers are customers, but we should, that's the whole point. We all need to respect each other, no matter what.
Absolutely.
We can't respect each other. How can we expect to be respected ourselves?
Correct.
Yeah. Treat others the way you wish to be treated.
Absolutely. Amen.
on this group actually believe that they expect a black person. I mean, to me, it's just a nonsense. I mean, I've got loads of black friends and Muslim friends. You know that, Dov. I mean, how many on this group actually think that way? Is it that common? I don't know. I'm quite shocked it happens, to be quite frank with you.
No, Barry, I don't think so. I think I'm like you. I'm absolutely shocked that anybody would even think that way or even approach anybody that way. The incident in MH Meets, that really does upset me because surely, and you know, when I've shopped in Salford, there's a lot of, you know, non-Jewish people there. That's about education. Ignorance is not an excuse, but this is about, you know, education and about people understanding the diversity of different Jewish people.
And it starts at home.
Oh, Candice, I've just put that in a message. My mum always said it starts at the breakfast table. So I know with my 6-year-old, she goes to King David in Liverpool. We have a small number of Jewish children there, so she is with children of different cultures. But she's got a strong Jewish identity. It's just about respect.
It is.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I didn't know this was happening in Manchester.
It has. Absolutely.
Can I add
really turn my
something to that? I'd like to add something to that, right? Every single shop in Manchester that I've ever been to, except for Halperns, has asked me, "What are you doing here?"
In those words.
Here?
Wow.
So it does happen in Manchester, and it happened. I've only lived here in the community, 8 years? So I'm telling you, it hasn't been that long ago. Every single shop, every single kiddush, every single L'chaim, every single board I go to, what are you doing here?
Della, I am so sorry you've experienced that.
I'm just saying, it happened. People just said, "Oh, I can't believe that's happening in Manchester." 100%.
Really?
And how have you answered them?
What?
How have you answered them?
I need to shop. I need food.
You shouldn't have to justify it, just like anyone.
I don't.
No,
I don't. I usually give a stupid answer. I don't. But I'm like, well, I need food. Where am I going to shop? And somebody asked me, well, you know, Tesco. Somebody said to me one time, you know, Tesco's a lot cheaper. Why don't you just buy your meat there? And I'm like, they don't keep kosher. The meat there's not kosher. I didn't know there was some meat there. And I'm like, you know, what am I gonna do? I need to go shopping. I need food.
Stella, that's awful. I'm really sorry you've had those experiences. Really am.
That's why I shop at Halperns. Well, another reason as well, but that's why I shop at Halperns. Never once has Halperns said to me, "What are you doing here?"
And that's what surprised me, because when you shop at Halperns, you can, you know, or when you go into Brackman's for a bite to eat, you know, I've spoken to non-Jewish people who go to Brackman's, have a cup of tea, cup of coffee, you know, they like the bagels there, etc. I wouldn't expect anybody to be asked why they're in that shop or what.
Oh, Brackman's is really good too. They've never asked me either, or given me funny looks.
I'm so sorry.
Considering where it's at, I thought that was really surprising.
Well done for speaking out. I'm sorry you've had to get to this point.
It's shocking.
It's
shocking. It's racist to say such a thing.
It's outright.
Jew can
racism.
Be racist.
I can't believe I'm hearing it. I'm shocked.
Me neither. So, in terms of
Sorry, your Muslim friends, right?
Yeah.
Think about Jews in the same way. They won't listen. They will know nothing except what they think.
What do you mean? Explain that.
They're not open-minded.
No, they're not. They're closed-minded, 100%.
Sorry, but you're being stereotypical again, or you're generalising here, because you're not taking as an individual. I'm sorry to intervene, but
as Dov will tell you, I'm probably friendly with more Muslim people than probably any Jew in South Manchester. Not only that, I actually had a phone call from Imran Khan, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, on my birthday. I'm in with them all. I went to a wedding. I was on the top table with 500 guests, and I know a lot of them. Dov will verify all this, what I'm saying to you. And even today, I was on Facebook, and I'm not often on Facebook, defending some radical comments made on Facebook of people that I know very well talking about Israel. And one thing they all do share is an undercurrent, is the hatred of Israel. And whatever you want to say, stereotyping, it runs rife, and it does. And if you want to kid yourself, it doesn't. You're living in cuckoo land, because it does. They absolutely hate. And if Israel burnt down today, they would be celebrating. And that's just a fact. And it's a very sad fact. And I say it to them, and they just look at me. And that's just the truth.
The only point I was making, that in every society, you've got people who are bigots. Right? And, of course. And our job is to fight against that wherever we can.
Rabbi Jaffe, can I ask them, please? You know, I'm a great supporter of Chabad, and you know, as you reach out, make people so welcome. In terms of changing hearts and minds, it's easier said than done. But what can be done so that instance? Is it educational programs? Is it training? Is it breaking down those stereotypes? You know, to talk about the diversity of different Jews, so people don't face this going forward. I might be being a bit idealistic here, but there must be something that can be practically done. Like Candice, I'm quite fired up after this evening.
Me too.
It starts with the kids. It starts with the children. We're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
We're doing the same thing with people with disabilities, with an organisation called the Friendship Circle. We go into schools. We go into schools with people with special needs, right? And the kids get to learn, you know, close up, that they're no different than anybody else, right? Except they've got special needs, and they create relationships with these people, right? And they're not abnormal anymore. And the same thing we could do with the black people. Go into the schools, meet the kids. We always laugh about it, but one of my kids, he must have been 3 years old, he went over to Loretta and did this to her hand, right? And he said, why can't I get off the dirt, right? So it was a very, you know, you see, you've got to teach your kids from a young age that people come in every shape and size and colour.
Of course. I mean, my mother always says it was from the breakfast table, and, you know, that's where it needs to start, in the home.
Also, another thing, Dov, which is, I mean, I know you obviously, my kids go to Hale Prep, which is a mixed school. It's got black children in it, Chinese children, Muslim children, children of all walks of life, and they're friends with all of them, and they don't even think about it. It's just normal to them because they've always been to a mixed school. They don't think of anything at all. It's only now they're 11, they go to King David, they're a Jewish school. But I do think that if you insulate children, then if they see a black child for the first time, of course they'll look strange. They've never seen a black child before. So it's about exposure. At the end of the day, if you don't expose children to various races and religions, they're going to be surprised. It's just inevitable.
It starts with the kid.
I watched the program recently on Sky, which was that there was a black community. It was some community I don't know, somewhere in the sticks, where they'd never seen a white person before ever. And a white person, this guy got there, and they were running away from him because they were scared. It's the same thing. They've never seen it before. You're scared of the unknown. That's all.
Aren't we, Barry, talking about, and I fully support everything you've just said, Barry. Are we talking about, though, starting with our own community? You know, that kind of understanding that there is diversity within the Jewish community.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's just, I just think that if a child isn't exposed to various religions and all creeds, then there will be insulation. I don't think it's healthy. That's my personal, I might be wrong. That's my opinion. That's why I decided to put my children into a mixed school from nursery up until 11. and at 11 they go to a Jewish school, at least they've mixed with a variety of people, and they understand and respect everybody. That's my personal choice.
No, and I support that. I went to I was secular and went to, you know, a Liverpool school, and I've made the choice to send my daughter to a Jewish school for Jewish identity. But what I'm concerned about really here is the fact that as a Jewish community, starting to look within ourselves, to think about that there is diversity and not everybody is, you know, of a stereotypical Jewish presentation, if you like, and
No, of course not.
How do we work on that?
Yeah.
The big question.
It is a big question. I mean, I mean, like I say, I'm quite shocked that there's such racism about. I mean, I can't believe the stories of going into a shop saying, "What are you here?" I mean, to me, it's just astounding. If I wouldn't have heard that, I would never have believed it. It's incredible to me. I mean,
but for a Jewish person,
2020 people,
a Jewish person to say that to another Jewish person.
Well, not just a Jewish person, to anybody, to say it to anybody. It's just outrageous.
But it's the irony of it, isn't it? It's the absolute,
exactly.
The absolute irony.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. 100%.
Okay, I'm leaving, but good night, everybody. It's been a very interesting discussion following on from Loretta's. Good night.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Good night, girls.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Rabbi.